Everyone in that cafeteria saw a poor scholarship kid crying over a wasted lunch. Nobody saw the truth. 40 children sat in that room. Only one of them was a threat. Maya was not crying, not once, not ever. She was watching, memorizing, calculating. Principal Edward Vance shredded his stolen ledgers in private. He believed the evidence was gone. An 8-year-old girl was taping the pieces back together alone in a school library with nothing but patience and a stolen scrap of blue-inked paper. She was not just a victim in this story. She was the auditor nobody hired. She was the one person Vance never accounted for.
Unbelievable. He just threw away a child's only meal right in front of the donor. Let's watch.
The elite academy cafeteria smelled like warm bread and old fluorescent light. Overhead, the tubes buzzed steady and thin. 200 students filled the long tables. Most wore navy blazers pressed that morning by someone paid to press them. Maya wore a gray cardigan soft from washing sleeve seams gone thin at the elbow. Her shoes were 2 sizes handed down. Her tray, when she carried it, carried more weight than food. Principal Edward Vance moved through the room like he owned the air in it. 52 years old, silver at the temples, a charcoal suit tailored close. His silk tie caught the light every time he turned his head. Blue expensive, the kind of blue that photographed well for donor brochures. He stopped at Maya's table. "Delinquent," he said, "for 11 days now." His voice carried calm, practiced, pitched for an audience. "This academy does not carry passengers, Maya. Standards exist for a reason." Maya said nothing. She held her tray with both hands. "Put it in the trash," he said again, softer this time, almost gentle, the cruelty folded neatly inside good posture and a good school's good manners. She looked at him. She did not blink. She did not cry. Silent, steady, and absolute, she stood there while 40 pairs of eyes waited to see what she would do. Slowly, she turned toward the bin at the end of the row. The tray tilted. Rice fell first, then the chicken, then the small carton of milk tumbling into the gray plastic can with a sound too small for a room this large. Somewhere behind her, 3 boys laughed loud, careless, unbothered. Principal Edward Vance smiled at that. He straightened his tie again, the same practiced pinch of 2 fingers he always used, a gesture the younger teachers had learned to read as a warning. He did not see the man standing just inside the double doors. Marcus Thorne had come for an unannounced tour, no assistant trailing him, yet no security visible, only a gray coat and a face that gave away nothing. He had built 3 companies and buried 1 marriage, learning how to keep his expression still, and it stayed still now. Watching a child empty her only lunch into a trash can 40 feet away. He did not move. He did not speak. He watched the tray tip. He watched the girl's spine, straight, unshaking, deliberate. He watched the principal's silk tie catch the light one more time. Marcus Thorne had wired that scholarship fund himself quietly without his name on the plaque. $500,000 meant for meals, uniforms, and books for kids exactly like the one standing at that bin. He said nothing. Not yet. He wanted to see more before he burned anything down. Principal Edward Vance turned satisfied, unaware, and walked back toward the administrative wing. His shoes clicked against the tile sharp, even confident. Maya stood alone at the bin a moment longer, her hands still shaking, closed into fists at her sides. Then she picked up her empty tray and carried it to the return window, spine straight, chin level, giving the room nothing more to laugh at. In his office 2 minutes later, Principal Edward Vance loosened his tie and sat down behind a wide mahogany desk. He pulled a single sheet of paper from his folder, blue ink columns of numbers that did not belong on any parent newsletter. He read it once, frowned, and crumpled it into a tight ball. He tossed it toward the trash can beside his desk. It missed the bin. It landed on the rim, half and half out, 1 torn corner of blue ink sticking up into the office light. He didn't notice. He was already reaching for his phone, already thinking about the board meeting, already 3 moves ahead in a game he believed no one else was playing. Down the hall, Marcus Thorne stepped back into the corridor. He straightened his own coat once and kept walking toward the exit. Unhurried, unreadable, already deciding what his next visit to this building would look like. He had seen enough for 1 day. He didn't know that the real evidence of what he'd just witnessed was sitting 6 feet away from where he'd stood, crumpled, half-fallen, waiting in a plastic bin no one had emptied yet. Marcus Thorne stepped into the corridor completely unaware that his empire was currently sitting at the bottom of a plastic waste bin. The administrative wing smelled like stale coffee and old wiring. Recess bell rang at 12:15 and the hallway outside cleared in 90 seconds flat. Maya didn't go outside. She waited by the water fountain until the last teacher passed, then slipped through the door marked "Staff Only." Her sneakers made no sound on the tile. She had practiced walking quiet for years in a house where the floors creaked and her mother slept light after 12-hour shifts. Principal Edward Vance's office door stood half open, empty, dim, smelling faintly of cologne and printer toner. Maya slid inside. She had one thought, small and specific. The blue ink paper, the one she'd seen him crumple 2 days ago, the one still wedged half in his trash can. She needed to know what it said. She never got the chance to look. Footsteps, heavy, deliberate closing fast down the hall. Maya dropped to the floor and crawled under the wide mahogany desk, knees tucked to her chest, back pressed against a drawer that smelled like old paper and cedar. She held her breath. The door opened. Polished black shoes crossed the carpet 3 steps, then stopped. Principal Edward Vance sat down at his desk, directly above her. Maya stayed still. Silent, small, and steady, she counted her own heartbeat to keep from shaking. His shoes tapped the floor twice, an old habit, restless and impatient. Then a drawer opened. Paper rustled. A machine clicked on low and mechanical and began to hum. A shredder. She recognized the sound from her mother's office cleaning job, the one where Clara emptied trash bins at 6 in the morning before Maya woke for school. Vance fed pages through it one at a time, unhurried. 23 seconds per sheet she counted, though she didn't yet understand why she was counting. 91,000, he muttered mostly to himself. Rounding error. Nobody checks a rounding error. He laughed once, short and dry, pleased with something only he understood. Maya's fingers dug into her palm. She stayed exactly where she was. For 11 minutes the shredder ran. Papers went in whole. Confetti came out the other side, thin strips of white and pale blue falling into a clear bin beside his desk. Then his phone rang. He answered, said 3 clipped words about a board dinner and stood. His shoes crossed back toward the door. The door clicked shut behind him. Maya counted to 60 before she moved. She crawled out from under the desk legs, stiff heart still loud in her ears. She looked at the shredder bin. Hundreds of paper strips sat piled inside it, tangled pale blue and white, meaningless on their own. Except one strip caught her eye. A torn corner, thicker stock blue ink bleeding through in a pattern she recognized. It matched the crumpled paper still wedged in the trash can across the room. The one she'd noticed 2 days earlier, the one that had haunted her ever since. She knelt down and started pulling strips out one at a time, careful, quiet, methodical. She had done puzzles like this before at the kitchen table with her mother's old bank statements back when there was barely enough money to need statements at all. Blue ink, blank white, blue ink again. She sorted them into small piles on the carpet, matching torn edges, matching faint lines of numbers that almost lined up. It took her 4 minutes to find the first real match, 2 jagged pieces fitting together like a broken plate. $1,143. That number printed twice in 2 different columns. She didn't understand accounting. She was 8. But she understood subtraction, and she understood that the lunch account said one number, while this shredded scrap said another, smaller, meaner number, and the difference between them was food she hadn't eaten in 11 days. She pulled more strips. She matched more edges. Her hands moved fast now, sure unafraid. By the time the recess bell rang again, she had reconstructed 6 inches of torn ledger taped together with a strip of clear tape from the janitor's cart in the hallway. It wasn't much. It wasn't whole. But it was real, and it was hers now. She folded it twice and pushed it deep into the front pocket of her backpack beneath her pencil case where no one would think to look. Maya smoothed the taped paper flat, realizing the headmaster wasn't just mean, he was a thief. Marcus Thorne stopped by the kitchen before he stopped by the library. He dipped a thermometer into a vat of tomato soup, watched the needle climb, then stop at 41 degrees. Rachel stood beside him, tablet in hand, waiting. 41, he said, served at 41. He didn't explain why that number mattered to him. Rachel didn't ask. In 6 years working for Marcus Thorne, she had learned that his silences carried more information than most men's sentences. Rachel Ferris was 34 years old, sharp-eyed, dressed in a charcoal blazer that cost more than most teachers here made in a week. She carried 3 phones, 2 notebooks, and the exact schedule of a man who trusted almost no one. She wrote the number down anyway. 41 degrees. Cold soup served to children who had no choice but to eat it. They left the kitchen. Marcus Thorne said nothing else about it, not yet, and they walked the long hallway toward the library in silence. The library smelled like old paper, and warm ink dust settled deep into the shelves. Sunlight cut through tall windows and slow-angled bars. Most students were still at recess. The room sat almost empty quiet except for the tick of a wall clock and the faint hum of the heating vents. In the far corner behind the last row of encyclopedias, a small shape sat cross-legged on the floor. Maya. She had spread taped paper across her lap, blue inked fragments, torn edges, lined up with careful precision. Her fingers moved fast, matching one scrap to another, oblivious to the footsteps approaching. Marcus Thorne saw her before she saw him. He slowed his pace. Rachel slowed with him 2 steps behind, watching her boss do something she had never once seen him do. He knelt down slowly, folding his 6-foot frame into the narrow space between shelves, bringing himself level with an 8-year-old girl. Maya froze. Silent, wary, and completely still, she pulled the papers against her chest before he could see them clearly. Her eyes darted to the exit, then back to him, calculating distance, calculating risk. "You don't have to show me," Marcus Thorne said. His voice was quiet, even without the polish men usually used on children they didn't know. "I'm not here to take anything from you." Maya said nothing. "I'm Marcus," he said. He didn't offer a hand. He'd learned somewhere along the way that children like this one didn't trust hands offered too quickly. "I fund the scholarship program here." Still nothing. Maya's jaw stayed tight, her arms crossed tighter around the papers, protecting them the way she might protect something alive. Rachel watched from a few feet away, silent, careful filing away every second of it. She had seen Marcus Thorne negotiate with senators. She had never seen him this patient with anyone. "You don't trust adults here," he said. Not a question. A fact stated plainly the way he might state a quarterly loss. "That's smart. I'd want proof too." Maya's grip loosened just slightly, just for a second. A single corner of blue-inked paper slipped free from beneath her arm, catching the window light. Marcus Thorne saw it. He recognized it instantly, the exact typeface, the exact column spacing the routing format his own finance department used on every wire transfer his foundation ever sent. He had signed off on documents formatted exactly like that scrap 100 times before. His face didn't change. Trained stillness, decades in the making, kept his expression flat, while something cold moved behind his eyes. "Where did you get that?" he asked, quiet, careful, no accusation in it at all. Maya tucked the paper back against her chest faster this time and said nothing. "I'm not going to ask again," Marcus Thorne said. "Not today." He stood slow and deliberate, joints stiff from the crouch, and looked down at her one more time. Maya stared back up at him, unflinching, unreadable, the same stillness he'd built his entire career on, staring right back at him from an 8-year-old face. "Okay," he said. He turned to go. Rachel fell into step beside him as they crossed the library toward the door, her heels clicking soft against the tile, steady like a metronome counting something down. "Sir," she said low enough that no one else could hear. "That paper. I saw it," Marcus Thorne said. "That's our routing format." "I know." Rachel glanced back once at the little girl in the corner, already smoothing the papers flat again, already back to work, as if nothing had happened. What does that mean? Marcus Thorne didn't answer right away. He walked 3 more steps before he spoke again, his voice low, flat, and certain. It means somebody's been moving money through the school, he said, and a second grader knows it before my own auditors do. He narrowed his eyes at the memory of the scrap of paper, recognizing a dangerous secret. The boardroom smelled like fresh coffee and lemon polish. 12 chairs lined a long walnut table, only 3 of them filled. Principal Edward Vance sat at the head, a leather folder open in front of him, 40 pages thick, bound in navy blue. He wore a new tie today, silver pressed flat against a crisp white shirt. He adjusted it once out of habit before he began. "Mr. Thorne," he said, "thank you for making time." Marcus Thorne said nothing. He opened his own copy of the folder and turned to the first page. Rachel sat beside him, tablet open, pen ready, saying nothing at all. "As you'll see," Principal Edward Vance said, "enrollment is up 6%. Scholarship retention sits at 94%. Donor satisfaction by our last survey at 98%. He smiled, practiced, warm, rehearsed, like a man who had given the speech a dozen times before. "The Academy has never been stronger." Marcus Thorne turned another page, slow, silent, and steady. "Food service," he said finally. "Walk me through the vendor contract." Principal Edward Vance's smile didn't move. "Standard vendor, sir. Fully licensed, fully compliant." 41 degrees, Marcus Thorne said. "That's what the soup measured yesterday." A pause. Small, almost invisible, gone in half a second. "Cooling procedures," Principal Edward Vance said, "are a matter of health code, not quality. We follow every regulation to the letter." "The letter," Marcus Thorne repeated. He didn't blink. "Not the spirit." Rachel's pen moved fast across her tablet, capturing every deflection, every smooth turn of phrase designed to sound like an answer while saying nothing at all. Principal Edward Vance folded his hands, calm, unbothered, certain of his own footing. "With respect, sir, some of our scholarship families struggle with expectations. Cultural fit takes time. Gratitude, unfortunately, isn't universal." Marcus Thorne's jaw tightened, barely a flicker Rachel caught only because she'd worked beside him for 6 years. He said nothing about it. "The lunch grant," he said instead, $500,000. "Show me where it went." Principal Edward Vance slid a single page across the table, clean printed official. Line items, vendor names, a neat column of numbers that added up exactly to $500,000. Not a cent more, not a cent less. Marcus Thorne studied it. 30 seconds passed. 40. He recognized the formatting. Clean, professional. Nothing at all like the torn blue ink fragments an 8-year-old girl had been piecing together on a library floor an hour earlier. "This is very thorough," Marcus Thorne said. "We take stewardship seriously," Principal Edward Vance said, straightening his tie again, the same 2-finger pinch, satisfied, certain he had already won. Rachel kept her eyes on her tablet. She didn't look up. She didn't need to. She had seen enough men like this one before, men who mistook silence for agreement. Marcus Thorne closed the folder. "I'd like to renew," he said, "at the current level." Principal Edward Vance's smile widened, genuine this time, relieved in a way he didn't bother to hide. "That's excellent news, Mr. Thorne. The board will be thrilled." "One condition," Marcus Thorne said. "Full audit access effective immediately. Financial, vendor, and personnel." The smile held, but something behind it shifted, small, quick, gone before Rachel could name it. "Of course," Principal Edward Vance said. "Nothing to hide here." He pushed a fresh contract across the table, along with a pen, gold-plated, engraved with the Academy's crest. Marcus Thorne picked it up. He didn't sign right away. He held it a moment, weighing something Rachel couldn't see, calculating exactly how long he needed this man, comfortable, unaware, and careless. Then he signed. One clean signature, controlled, deliberate. Wonderful, Principal Edward Vance said. He buttoned his jacket and extended a hand across the table. A pleasure, as always. Marcus Thorne shook it, firm, brief, and cold. Likewise, he said. Principal Edward Vance walked them out himself, chatting the entire way about a new marble fountain planned for the front courtyard, $40,000 donor-funded, unrelated to anything Marcus Thorne had just asked about. Rachel waited until they reached the parking lot before she spoke. You signed, she said, after everything you just saw. I signed, Marcus Thorne said. Why? He looked back once at the academy's tall glass doors, gold letters catching the afternoon sun, and said nothing for a long moment. Because a man who thinks he's already won, he said, stops covering his tracks. Rachel said nothing else. She understood. Behind them, inside his office, Principal Edward Vance poured himself a glass of scotch, loosened his tie, and smiled at his own reflection in the window glass. $91,000 richer this quarter, a fresh signature securing next year's funds, and not a single person in this building smart enough, he believed, to notice a thing. The ink dried on the contract, unaware it was signing a death warrant.
Principal Edward Vance just locked Maya in a supply closet and threatened to have Clara arrested to cover his tracks. If that were me, I would be paralyzed by the sheer injustice of a framework built to crush the vulnerable. Imagine standing utterly powerless while the man starving you promises to destroy your family. This changes the entire game.
The hallway lights buzzed overhead, thin and steady. The same sound Maya had learned to tune out months ago. School ended at 3:15. By 3:17, most students were gone, backpacks bouncing toward buses and waiting cars. Maya moved fast, quiet, her backpack heavier than usual, 6 inches of taped ledger tucked deep inside beneath her pencil case. She almost made it to the front doors. Maya? Principal Edward Vance's voice cut through the empty hall, sharp close closer than she expected. She turned. He stood 10 feet away, arms crossed his silver tie, catching the light from the exit sign above her head. Where are you going in such a hurry? He asked. Home, Maya said. Quiet, steady. She didn't look away. Give me the bag. She stepped back. He stepped forward. Before she could turn, his hand closed around the strap and yanked it hard off her shoulder. The zipper burst open. Paper spilled across the tile-torn edges, taped seams, blue ink catching the fluorescent light. Principal Edward Vance went still. He crouched down slow and picked up one taped fragment. He read it once. His face changed tight pale, the color of old concrete. Where, he said, did you get this? Maya said nothing. Where did you get this? His voice cracked on the second word, control slipping for just a moment before he caught it again. That's when Clara arrived. She came through the front doors at 3:19, exhausted from a double shift, still in her cleaning uniform, keys jangling in her tired hand. She saw her daughter first small against the tile, and then she saw the man towering over her. Get away from her, Clara said, already moving, already crossing the hallway fast. Principal Edward Vance rose to his full height, taped ledger fragments crushed in one fist. Your daughter, he said, has been stealing confidential school records. She's 8, Clara said. Her voice shook. She's 8 years old. She's a thief, he said, and you clearly can't control her. Clara reached Maya and pulled her close, one arm wrapped tight around her shoulders. Maya didn't cry. She stood rigid, papers still scattered at her feet, the only sound in the hallway, her own ragged breathing. Please, Clara said. Whatever this is, we can talk about it. Just leave her alone. Principal Edward Vance smiled, thin, cold, certain of the ground beneath him. I could call this fraud, he said. I could call this theft of institutional property. I could call Child Protective Services this afternoon and explain that an unstable single mother's daughter has been breaking into staff offices. Clara's face went white. You wouldn't, she said. Try me, he said. Gone. All of it. Every ounce of control in the hallway gone. Not fair. Not right. Not stoppable. He grabbed Maya's arm, pulled her from her mother's grip, and dragged her toward the supply closet 3 doors down. Clara screamed, grabbed at his sleeve, and he shoved her back hard against the lockers. "One phone call," he said low, right against Maya's ear as he pushed her inside the closet. "One phone call and your mother loses you forever. Foster care doesn't care about report cards, sweetheart." The door slammed shut. The lock clicked. Darkness swallowed everything. Maya sat on the cold floor between a mop bucket and a shelf of cleaning supplies, knees pulled to her chest, the smell of bleach thick in her throat. Outside, muffled through the door, she heard her mother crying, begging, and Principal Edward Vance's voice calm again now, already threatening, already rebuilding his composure. She reached into what was left of her backpack, still slung crooked on one shoulder. Her fingers found the last surviving fragment of blue ink ledger, the one piece he hadn't torn from her hands. She held it against her chest in the dark. Real talk for a second here. It's hard to watch this and not want to reach through the screen. An 8-year-old locked in a closet holding the only piece of evidence she has left while the man threatening her family walks free down the hallway outside. If that's not the definition of powerless, I don't know what is. Maya didn't cry. Not yet. She sat in the dark and listened to her mother's voice grow smaller, farther away, swallowed by a hallway that belonged to men like Principal Edward Vance. She thought about the trash can in his office, the soup at 41 degrees, the billionaire who had knelt beside her in the library and asked where she'd gotten a piece of paper he clearly recognized. She didn't know if any of it mattered anymore. She only knew that somewhere beyond that locked door her mother was breaking, and it was her fault. In the dark of the closet, Maya heard the lock click shut, sealing her fate. Clara pounded on the office door with both fists. "Let her out," she screamed. "Let my daughter out right now." No one answered. The administrative wing sat empty. Most staff gone for the day, only the hum of fluorescent lights and the distant sound of a vacuum somewhere down another hall. Clara's hands ached against the wood. She kept pounding anyway. Inside the supply closet, Maya sat still in the dark. She had counted to 200, slow, deliberate, the way she counted everything when she needed her hands to stop shaking. Bleach fumes stung the back of her throat. A single strip of blue ink paper stayed pressed against her chest, damp now from her palms. She was done waiting. Maya stood, reached up, and felt along the shelf above her head. Metal cold, heavy. A bookend shaped like a small brass lion forgotten there years ago by some teacher who never came back for it. She gripped it with both hands. The vent sat above the shelving, a rusted metal grate barely visible in the dark. Maya climbed onto the lowest shelf, careful, quiet, testing her weight before trusting it fully. Then she swung the bookend hard against the grate. Metal cracked. Not enough. She swung again. Harder this time, elbows locked every ounce of her 8-year-old frame behind it. The grate gave way, clattering down onto the shelf below her, loud in the small space, louder than she wanted. She froze, listening. Outside, Clara's voice kept rising, kept begging, and no one came. Maya climbed. The vent shaft was narrow, colder than the closet, thick with dust that coated the back of her throat. She pulled herself up on her elbows, knees scraping against sheet metal, the blue ink paper clenched between her teeth to keep her hands free. She crawled. 12 feet, then 20. Her palms stung, scraped raw against rusted seams. Somewhere below her, muffled through the metal, she heard footsteps, voices, a door opening and closing. She kept moving. The shaft bent right, then dropped at a sharp angle. Maya braced her hands against the sides, slowing her slide until her fingers found the edge of another grate below her. Weak light filtered through the slats, gray, thin, real. She kicked once. The grate popped loose and swung down on a single hinge. Maya dropped. She landed hard in the main corridor, knees first, palms scraping tile dust and paper still clenched between her teeth. She looked up, breathing fast, heart slamming against her ribs. 40 feet away near the front entrance, Marcus Thorne stood buttoning his coat, flanked by two members of his security team already halfway through his goodbyes to a nervous administrative assistant. He was leaving. Maya scrambled to her feet. A teacher's aide spotted her, first gasped, and started toward her fast. "Hey, where did you come from?" Maya ran. She ducked under the aide's outstretched arm, sprinted past a startled janitor, and cut hard across the lobby's open floor. Security near the front doors turned at the sudden movement, one hand rising toward a radio clipped at his belt. She didn't stop. Her shoes slapped against polished marble, fast, uneven, desperate. 40 feet became 30. 30 became 20. She could see Marcus Thorne's face, now calm, unaware, already turning toward the exit. "Sir, please, we need to hold the student," someone shouted behind her. Maya pulled the paper from her teeth, gripping it now in one fist, damp with sweat and dust. The last surviving fragment of everything she'd worked to save. 10 feet. 5. She planted her feet. She inhaled deep once and prepared to break every rule this building had ever taught her to follow. Marcus Thorne's hand was already on the door when he heard the shout behind him. "Sir, we need to hold the student." He turned. So did his security detail. So did the administrative assistant beside him. So did every teacher and student still lingering in the lobby at 3:24 that afternoon. Maya stood 10 feet away, chest heaving dust in her hair, a crumpled fragment of blue ink paper clenched in one fist. Behind her, Principal Edward Vance burst through the double doors from the east hallway, tie crooked face red, shouting before he'd even crossed the threshold. "Security grabber! That child stole confidential records." The lobby froze. 40 students, a dozen teachers, 3 security guards, all of them caught between two authorities, suddenly at war in the middle of a marble floor. Maya didn't look at Vance. She didn't look at the guards moving toward her. She looked straight at Marcus Thorne, and she ran. He didn't step back. He didn't flinch. She slammed the paper flat against his chest, both hands pressed hard against his expensive charcoal coat, refusing to let go, even as a guard's hand landed on her shoulder. "Look," she said. Her voice cracked small, but it didn't waver. "Look at the numbers." Marcus Thorne looked down. Blue ink. Torn edges taped together with clear packing tape. A child's careful reconstruction of something that was never meant to survive a shredder. Routing numbers. 6 sets, all matching a format he had personally approved 100 times before, all leading to an account he had never once authorized. "Where," he said, "quiet did you get this?" "Under his desk," Maya said. "In the shredder bin." "He tore up the real numbers and gave you fake ones." Principal Edward Vance shoved through the crowd, breathing hard, sweat beading at his hairline despite the cool marble lobby. "She's lying. She's a disturbed child making up stories, sir. I assure you the accounts are clean. The vendor contracts are 91,000, Maya said, cutting through him louder, now steadier. "That's what you said in your office. I heard you. I counted the seconds. 23 seconds per page for 11 minutes. The color drained from Principal Edward Vance's face, fast, complete, like someone had pulled a plug behind his eyes. Rachel had already crossed the lobby, tablet-raised camera, already recording. She said nothing. She didn't need to. Marcus Thorne read the numbers again. He recognized every digit. His own foundation's routing prefix, followed by an account string that belonged to no vendor he had ever approved, no school fund he had ever authorized. He had signed a contract 3 days ago, believing this man clean. He had been wrong. "That's not a rounding error," Marcus Thorne said, quiet, flat, the words landing in the silent lobby like stones dropped into still water. "That's an offshore account." "I don't know where she's getting this," Principal Edward Vance said, his voice thinner, now cracking at the edges. "Cultural fit is one thing, but this is a fabrication. This is a child who clearly has issues at home, issues that—" "Stop talking," Marcus Thorne said. The room went dead silent, the kind of silence that had weight pressing down on every chest in that lobby at once. Marcus Thorne looked down at Maya, still standing beside him, chin level, eyes steady, not one tear on her face despite everything that had happened to her in the last hour. Real talk, watching an 8-year-old hold her ground like that against a grown man twice her size in every way that matters. That's the kind of courage most adults never manage in a lifetime. "You dug this out of a shredder," he said. "Yes, sir," Maya said. "You matched routing numbers by hand." "Yes, sir." He looked at the paper one more time at the numbers that had just unraveled everything he thought he'd secured 3 days ago in that boardroom. Marcus Thorne stared at the blue ink, realizing he had been funding a monster. "Lock the doors," Marcus Thorne said. His security team moved instantly, 2 men crossing to the main entrance, one to the side exit near the gymnasium. Glass doors clicked shut one after another, sealing the lobby in less than 11 seconds. Principal Edward Vance's smile flickered back onto his face, thin, forced sweat now visible along his collar. "Mr. Thorne, this is hardly necessary. Whatever this troubled child has told you—" "Rachel," Marcus Thorne said. Rachel already had her tablet raised thumb moving fast across the screen. "Cross-referencing now." "You can't seriously believe," Principal Edward Vance said, laughing once, short, brittle, "that an 8-year-old's finger painting means anything against 40 pages of certified financial documents." Maya didn't flinch. She stood beside Marcus Thorne, small against the marble lobby, pointing one steady finger directly at the principal. "You told him 91,000, she said. "I heard you count the pages." "Fabrication," Principal Edward Vance said, voice climbing control, slipping fast now. "This is defamation. This is a serious accusation from a child who clearly struggles with boundaries, with truth. Her home situation is—" "Stop!" Marcus Thorne said again. Rachel's screen chimed. She looked up, face unreadable professional. "Confirmed," she said. "Routing prefix matches our foundation, or terminal account traces to a shell company registered in the Caymans, opened 14 months ago." 40 students still stood frozen near the cafeteria entrance, teachers beside them, no one daring to move. A dozen phones had come out quiet, recording everything. Principal Edward Vance's face had gone the color of old concrete, the color it had turned the moment Maya first spoke those numbers aloud. He straightened his tie, twice the same nervous gesture that used to mean confidence, and now only meant he had nothing left to hold on to. 52 years old, Marcus Thorne said, quiet almost to himself. 23 years running this academy, and you thought nobody would check a rounding error. "I have given my life to this institution," Principal Edward Vance said, his voice cracking down the middle. 23 years of service, and you're going to destroy everything over some scrap of paper a child pulled out of a trash can. "Yes," Marcus Thorne said. He pulled out his phone. Principal Edward Vance's eyes widened. Wait, let's discuss this like professionals." "There's no need to involve outside parties. We can handle this internally quietly, the way these things are always handled." "That's exactly the problem," Marcus Thorne said. He dialed. The lobby stayed silent enough that everyone heard the call connect, heard it ring twice, heard a voice answer on the other end. "This is Marcus Thorne," he said. "I need federal auditors at the Elite Academy immediately. Wire fraud, embezzlement, falsified financial records. I have a witness and physical evidence." Principal Edward Vance took one step back, then another, his shoulders hitting the glass door his own security had just locked shut behind him. "You can't do this," he said. "The board will never allow." "The board," Marcus Thorne said, "prioritized your optics over children eating cold soup for 2 years. The board is finished too." Maya stood perfectly still through all of it, no fear on her face, no triumph either. Just the same steady stillness she'd carried since the moment a tray tipped into a trash can 8 days ago. Rachel crossed the lobby and knelt beside her, voice gentle, careful. "You did the right thing," she said. "You know that." Maya nodded once. She didn't say anything else. She was still watching Principal Edward Vance, watching the man who had locked her in a closet and threatened her mother's freedom, now backed against a door he couldn't open, waiting for something he couldn't stop. Marcus Thorne ended the call and slid the phone back into his coat pocket. Calm, deliberate, final. 20 minutes, he said. "Federal auditors and 2 agents. Nobody leaves this lobby until they arrive." Principal Edward Vance said nothing. There was nothing left to say. His empire, built on $91,000 a quarter and 23 years of unchecked authority, had just collapsed in front of 40 witnesses and a dozen recording phones. The billionaire picked up his phone, ready to burn the headmaster's world to the ground. The Grand Assembly Hall filled fast that morning, 300 parents, teachers, and students packed into rows meant for half that number. Principal Edward Vance stood off stage, flanked by 2 members of Marcus Thorne's security team, his silver tie finally gone, his collar open, his hands clasped tight in front of him like a man praying to a god he'd never bothered believing in before. Marcus Thorne walked to the podium instead of him. A murmur rolled through the crowd. Cameras from 2 local news stations swung toward the stage. Clara sat in the front row, Maya beside her, both of them still quiet, waiting. "Good morning," Marcus Thorne said. "I know you expected Principal Vance today." He didn't smile. He didn't perform. He simply nodded to Rachel, who tapped her tablet once, and the massive screen behind him lit up with a spreadsheet, clean damning complete. 11 days ago, he said, an 8-year-old scholarship student watched her only hot meal get thrown in the trash. She was told her account was delinquent. $212. The screen changed. A second figure appeared beside the first. $91,000 a quarter, Marcus Thorne said. Diverted from this school's lunch program into an offshore account for 14 months. $364,000 total, while children ate soup served at 41 degrees. Silence swallowed the hall, the kind of silence that pressed on every chest in the room at once. Principal Edward Vance shifted off stage, sweat visible even from the back row, his security escort standing close enough to stop him from bolting. "This is not a rounding error," Marcus Thorne said. "This is theft, systemic, deliberate, and hidden behind 23 years of good optics." He clicked forward. Photographs of shredded documents appeared, torn edges, blue ink, the same fragments Maya had spent 11 minutes reconstructing on a library floor. "A child did what my own audit team should have caught 2 years ago," Marcus Thorne said. "She matched torn paper by hand while the adults in this building called her ungrateful." Clara reached over and took Maya's hand. Maya didn't cry. She kept her eyes on the screen, on the numbers finally laid bare for 300 people to see. The doors at the back of the hall opened. Agent Cole walked in first, badge raised, 4 federal agents behind her, moving fast down the center aisle. She was 50 years old, gray suit, flat, unreadable expression, the kind of authority that needed no volume to fill a room. "Edward Vance," she said. "Federal agents, you're under arrest for wire fraud and embezzlement." 2 agents crossed the stage. Principal Edward Vance stepped back, once hit the security guard behind him, and had nowhere left to go. "This is absurd," he said, voice cracking thin, desperate. 23 years. I built this academy's reputation. I gave everything to... "Save it," Agent Cole said. The cuffs clicked shut around his wrists, cold, final, and metallic in the silence of that packed hall. "You threw away a child's meal," Marcus Thorne said from the podium, watching him go in front of the man who funded it. Principal Edward Vance's face had gone the color of old concrete, empty now, drained of every ounce of the arrogance he'd worn for 2 decades. "You told me culture takes time," Marcus Thorne said. "You told her gratitude wasn't universal." He let the words hang there a moment before he finished. "You were right about one thing," he said. "Nobody in this building was grateful for what you were stealing from them." Agent Cole led Principal Edward Vance up the center aisle, past 300 silent faces, past teachers who had watched him for years and said nothing, past students who would never forget what they'd seen. He didn't speak again. There was nothing left worth saying. Marcus Thorne stepped down from the podium and crossed to the front row. He knelt in front of Maya the same way he had in the library 8 days earlier, bringing himself level with her one more time. "Your mother's job is safe," he said. "Your scholarship is fully funded permanently, and there's a trust in your name now. College and whatever comes after that." Maya reached into her jacket pocket and pulled out the last surviving fragment of blue ink paper, worn soft now from being carried so long the tape yellowed at the edges. "I don't need this anymore," she said, and held it out to him. Marcus Thorne looked at it a long moment. Then he closed her fingers back around it gently and shook his head. "Keep it," he said. "You earned it." Clara pulled her daughter close, tears finally falling, the kind that came from relief instead of fear. Maya let herself cry, now quiet, brief, safe. Outside the assembly hall, reporters gathered on the front steps, cameras already rolling, ready to tell 300,000 people by morning what had happened inside that room. Maya held the taped paper against her chest one last time, the same way she had in a locked supply closet in a library corner in a vent shaft 11 feet above a marble floor. Justice, it turned out, did not whisper. It roared.
Have you ever faced an inherently rigged system? This video is a work of fiction created with the assistance of artificial intelligence. Our daily battles often require extraordinary courage. I know the stinging weight of systemic unfairness firsthand. How did you reclaim your power when gatekeepers tried to erase you? Share your testimony below and subscribe to the channel for more narratives.